We have 6 ultrasound trained faculty, so they've done fellowships in ultrasound, and we put a heavy focus here on residents getting good training in ultrasound. I think our fellowship is great because it's just fun. I think it's a fun way to spend a year. The fellows learn a lot of advanced applications in ultrasound, and we do a lot of traveling. My other interest is international work. We do a lot of global outreach ultrasound teaching in areas around the world like Vietnam, Laos, Romania, Cambodia, Argentina, Mexico. And we also do focus on rural areas in the United States. So we do teachings a lot of times in places like Montana, Idaho, places where there are physicians that are very spread out and they have to take care of a lot of things, but they don't really have much access to imaging. And so we teach them how to do a lot of things at the bedside, like do some of the advanced nerve blocks that maybe they have to put someone in an ambulance for 6 hours with a hip fracture, and they can do a nerve block for pain control. So we teach them things like that.
I chose ultrasound because I wanted to become more adept at the basic procedures, but also learn more of the advanced cardiac echo procedures and the transesophageal echo. I also really like using ultrasound for pain management. I'm a big proponent for alternate to opioids, so I wanted to learn nerve blocks, specifically ones that I wasn't familiar with. Also, the ability to run my own ultrasound program one day would be a goal of mine, and Dr. Gavin Vidram orchestrates a really great fellowship in order to be able to learn those traits and be able to have your own program one day. Why Baystate? I was a resident at Baystate as an emergency medicine resident, and I think it's one of the best programs out there. Our hospital has one of the highest acuities and volumes in the nation, and that drew me there for residency, and it drew me to stay there as a fellow because I knew that I was going to work attending shifts with the resident, and I thought it would give me really good practice at some high volume, high acuity situations.
Ultrasound for me provides me a really good teaching niche. I really like working with residents. I like working with adult learners, and I think it is probably going to replace the stethoscope as the point of care diagnostic modality, if not becoming just much more prolific as the technology becomes smaller and less expensive. And I think it's going to continue to get more utilized in early medical education, in the medical schools in the preclinical years, as well as expanding its role in the point of care setting. Baystate actually, in compared to Albany, is much more robust about their use of the ultrasound, and nearly every patient encounter, the residents are very willing and very capable of bringing the ultrasounds in when they're doing their initial evaluations of the patient. The curriculum is very ED focused. There's not many rotations where you get sent to, say, the echo lab or the anesthesiology clinic where you're doing blocks and getting to learn more than what you would use in day-to-day. It's very heavily focused on what are the practical applications of point-of-care ultrasound, how are you using it as a care adjunct, and how are you using it to make critical decisions as fast as possible in an efficient manner.
So I chose a wilderness fellowship for a bunch of reasons. One, I love being outdoors. It's a passion for me, so I wanted to be safe with my friends and myself out there. So learning more about the wilderness is great. Also, I love austere medicine. What can you do with when you don't have the supplies available? It creates creativity that I think that we become really reliant on the tools we have, but there's a lot of places out there that don't have the tools. So I think that's a lot of fun to learn the wilderness medicine. So I was a resident at Baystate, and I chose Baystate initially because it was in a location I liked, and I just love the people here. I think you'll hear that answer for everybody, but I came here, I didn't rotate here. I met Dr. Osborne, Ben, and he was incredible, and the rest of the staff were incredible, and every event was so nice and welcoming that it just felt like home right away.
I've actually wanted to do wilderness medicine even before medical school started. So my passion for wilderness medicine started somewhat early on. I love low resource, austere medicine, pretty much all around emergency medicine, which is the reason why I chose wilderness medicine. And I feel like it will prepare me to be prepare for any type of event, which is the key and core concept of emergency medicine pretty much. And I also love outdoor activities, including surfing and mountaineering, which is kind of perks of being a wilderness medicine fellow. That's it.
We designed it with the intent to be able to expose people to how to learn about and then educate others about wellness, about mental health, about the stressors that come along with being a doctor in general, and kind of especially to emergency medicine. We also designed it with the anticipation that in the future you're going to see a lot more institutions, hospitals, and departments having wellness officers, CWOs, if you will. And the Chief Wellness Officer's job is to initiate programs and to keep people as safe as they can, to try to reduce burnout, to try to increase resilience amongst their staff. The object of this fellowship is to learn a couple of tricks of the trade, get maybe a protocol or a research initiative underground so that you could say, hey, I've done this project, I can go and bring it out into the world, I can bring it out to your institution, make yourself something more than just an emergency room doctor. You're bringing so much more to the table for not only doctors, but staff in general and hospital-wide is what we're trying to accomplish here at Baystate.
So we are one of the first wellness fellowships in the country for emergency medicine. I chose it because I had a strong interest in both leadership and in wellness. I think that it's really important to have all the support system in place for all of us providers to be able to do our jobs and to feel better when we go home, reducing burnout, improving our emotional strength, our physical health, and just making the work and the job that we do a little bit more pleasurable for everyone. One of my favorite things about Baystate is the Wellness and Resiliency Club that we have once a month on Thursdays. It's a time where before COVID, we were all able to get together, protected time for education, for learning about wellness, how to build resiliency, and also about important life things like getting disability insurance, life insurance, how to buy a house, things that we don't really talk about. So those were really important to me and one of my favorite things. And that's one of the big projects that I'm working on this year is revamping that. So I chose Baystate because I did my residency there and I just couldn't leave because I loved everyone so much. It's a really awesome place, mainly because when the second you step into Baystate, you'll know that, and I'm sure other people have said this, but it's just such a family atmosphere. So you're part of a team, you're part of a family, and everyone just kind of embraces you and takes you in. So the people, definitely the best benefit of being a resident at Baystate and staying on to do fellowship as well.
5-6 years ago now, we started a medical education fellowship, and the curriculum of it is to exactly what would we want to do if we were graduating right now for the next year or two, depending if you want to do that fancy master's or not.
And essentially what we did was we put together a lot of the training and knowledge base that we had attained by going to umpteen cord meetings and the ASEP teaching fellowship and a whole lot of conferences, as well as the learning we did on the job, and we sort of put it together into one fellowship where you could choose how much experience you wanted to get. And the key feature in designing our fellowship was to have a scaffold that everyone who goes through the fellowship does, and then have an area that you get to concentrate in and really hone down and do projects and explore an area you're interested in. And we have had fellows so far that have chosen each different areas to come down in, which has been really fun because it ever widens our own education and what we can deliver.
So I chose to do a medical education fellowship because I really enjoy teaching. I enjoy sharing my knowledge with others. Throughout all of residency, I was looking for ways to help mentor and continue to educate those who were in classes behind me and even my other co-residents, and also learning from my co-residents. I chose to do one at Baystate because I have a lot of freedom to tailor my fellowship to my particular interests. So I'm really interested in kind of early learners, so focusing on our interns and also focusing on mentorship. But other fellows have done focuses on simulation, undergraduate medical education, and so it's really nice to be able to tailor my fellowship towards my interests and not kind of be forced into doing topics that I'm not necessarily as interested in. Baystate is a great place. It's one big happy family. I think that everybody is really focused on you as a person and wants you to do well and to succeed in whatever your goals are.
We're really excited about our Emergency Medicine Fellowship here at Baystate. We think we get great training. The residents and fellows get to see a lot of pathology. All the kids in all of Western Massachusetts have to come through here if they're really sick. We're the only pediatric ICU around and the only major pediatric trauma center.
I chose Baystate because it was very different than where I went to residency. Baystate really prioritizes both resident and fellow education, which is what really drove me here. I had a really good interview day with a lot of the attending faculty in the Peds emergency room. And outside of the hospital, I love doing outdoorsy things. I think, especially in this kind of biological climate, it's kind of weird to find some stuff to do, but in this area, there's definitely tons of stuff to do outdoors, especially. That's a big thing when I came here.
In terms for Baystate, it was, honestly, it's one of those kind of cliche kind of things, but it was really kind of the feeling that I got and the people that I met. Everybody was so genuine when I first kind of came here and introduced myself. They were really interested in who I was as a person, as well as just kind of the life, balance of work was a huge kind of proponent for me to come here, and it's been wonderful. My first year and almost half now, midway through fellowship, and I really couldn't enjoy it any more than I have so far.
I picked Baystate because everybody was really relaxed when I was here. The tour was relaxed, lunch was relaxed. The people that I met were all happy and they called each other by their first names, and the PDD seemed very enjoyable. It seems like everybody liked their job and they like being here because there's a really diverse, different kind of pathology in the population around. You see all sorts of different kinds of injuries, different kinds of illnesses, and you get the occasional interesting congenital patient that comes through. So I get to see a wide variety of stuff.
Our research fellowship is really cool because it's really flexible. We have a 1-year fellowship and a 2-year fellowship, and they can be used to sort of accomplish different things. So a lot of the people that have done 1-year fellowships, they have an area of interest. They have an interest in ultrasound or wilderness medicine, but also research, and they want to combine it. And so it's a way to sort of get a taste of research, get some skills. Our 2-year fellowship is what I'm actually a graduate of. And during the 2-year fellowship, it's more rigorous, it's more intense, and you actually get a master's in clinical and translational science. And that's neat because you really get that super strong foundation in research methodology. The best part of our fellowship is really the faculty. We have a lot of faculty with very diverse interests in different kinds of research. For me, for example, I am an implementation science researcher. So I research why the heck doctors can't translate the most evidence-based practice into their practice. I also dabble in pulmonary embolism research. We have this faculty that has broad interests in different types of research methodology and different types of studies and getting things done. And that's a resource for people who are interested in research, maybe a little bit, but really want to get some skills, or maybe haven't done research and are like, all the cool kids these days, they're not doing ultrasound fellowships, they're not doing wilderness fellowships. Research is where it's at. And it's cool because research is something that you can carry on as a niche throughout your career in emergency medicine.
When I was little, I knew I always wanted to grow up to be a medical administrator. Okay, not. But I will say, if you're one of those people that is in a long line as
circus performer.
A circus performer, you can do both things because we do wellness here too. So you're in a long line at a salad bar and you're really hungry, and there are 2 sides, but they have it set up with 1 set of spoons. And you're waiting and waiting and waiting. You're like, why doesn't somebody just get a bunch of other spoons and put them on the other side, and you go through twice as fast? If you're that person that wants the other side of the salad bar to be open, maybe medical administration is for you, because there's always a better way, and sometimes it just takes somebody with a little bit of practical problem solving and maybe a little bit of tolerance for red tape. I do strongly believe that people appreciate what we're doing, and they know that we exist so that we can sort of make it so that everyone else can do the job that they love.
So just tell you a little bit of what an administrative fellowship looks like and what it looks like here in particular. our administrative fellows sort of start broad and start by exposure to all different aspects of administration, whether it be operations, process change, quality work, and sort of get a sense of what there is out there, because there's lots of different avenues in which you can sort of make some change, do some good, keep people happy, well, and motivated. And then each fellow, depending on their interest, what they find interesting, sort of picks a project, and the projects can be really varied.
I think one of the things that makes this our environment uniquely suited to having an administrative fellowship, one is we're a hospital system, so there's exposure to both the community hospitals, from small to medium, as well as the medical center here with a pediatric emergency department. So that's sort of a broad base. I think we have some unique resources.
I should mention too, there's 2 ways to do the fellowship. There's a 2-year track that involves getting a master's in healthcare administration, or you can do a 1-year track, and we've had people do both.
Yeah, so again, administration is fun despite what other people will tell you, and it is vitally important to making things run more smoothly and run better provide better patient care.
You know you might be a future administrative fellow in the making when, by sharing a story with you. So I recently turned 50 and did not want any gifts that would take up space in my small living space. And so I asked for, I was thinking about doing something for charity, but then that gets complicated. And so I decided that I was gonna have a crayon drive. If you decide to do that and you have a lot of friends that want to buy crayons, you might wanna also rent a storage space, because I still have a problem storing them. But I had a great response, and we got tons of crayons, and people like Tala ended up sharing the ask with their families, which led to part 2 of this story.
So we were getting ready to go to Julie's 50th birthday, and I needed to get crayons. So I took my 9-year-old with me to the store and say, hey, I need your help, because we need to be able to carry all these crayons and put them in the cart and get the bags. And so he's like, okay, figuring we're getting a few. We got a lot of crayons. And he was asking what they were for, and I was explaining that Jolie was having this crayon drive for her birthday to bring these crayons to the pediatric emergency department so kids would have something to do while they were waiting. And
anyway, I do have to interrupt by saying that we used to, when you go to a restaurant and you get 4 crayons and they're like never the right colors, that's what we used to have, and so I was trying to improve upon that option of the 4 crayon option.
Yeah. And so she had made it very clear that 4 crayons packs were not acceptable. They needed to be ideally 8, maybe 12 or 24 crayon packs. And so I explained this to Trevor, my 9-year-old, and we had some 8 packs, some 12 packs, some 24 packs, and he's like, but Mom, how are you going to decide who gets the crayons? Does everyone get the crayons when they come into the pediatric emergency department? Is it only if they're waiting for a certain time? Who gets the 8-pack? Who gets the 24-pack? And I'm like, I don't know. He's like, but Mom, I need to understand. Can you find out for me? And I'm like, yeah, I can ask Jolie. And he's like, okay, because I just really want to understand the crayon distribution system. Literally, that's what he says.
So that's how she asked. She's like, how do you distribute the crayons? And in my mind, it was very clear, but when I tried to put it on paper, it ended up looking like this. So we will be able to share this maybe in a different way, but I'm gonna let Tala go through it because she's frankly more amused by this than I am. For me, this is just the way the crayon part of my brain works.
So I brought this to Trevor and said, hey Trevor, good news. I figured out, I got the copy of the crayon distribution system for you. And he posted this up in his room and was very happy with it. So it starts off with, is the patient likely to need for more than an hour? If the answer is no, sorry, no crayons. It's just, fair is fair. And then it moves on to important questions like, is the patient known to explore things with his or her mouth or eat things that aren't food? And if the answer is yes, instead a large piece activity choice is offered. Other questions follow, like if the patient has a dominant hand, if that dominant hand is incapacitated by splinter cast, visual choices may be offered then. But if they are able to use crayons, you really want to know important things like, are they likely to color on walls, chairs, floors, or other non-paper surfaces? If the answer is yes, a leave no trace activity is offered instead. If they pass through all this criteria though and do get crayons, you want to know things like, do they know their colors? If not, a 4-pack is offered. If they do, they get an 8-pack, and then their drawing project is assessed. And if they put a considerable amount of effort into coloring, they are then offered a 12 or 24-pack for their second coloring project. If not, another activity is offered afterwards. So there you have it.
So I would say if like somebody ever asks you a question and your answer goes to the flowship chart format, we would like to meet you.